everybody to another weekly community meeting for ResearchHub. And so I think we're going to get things started with one of the members of the team, Patrick, over here, who is going to discuss some of the V1 updates on the reputation system.
Cool. I'm going to share screen.
Make sure to say the last name. Lou versus
Patrick Lou. Yeah. Patrick Lou is presenting right now. Yeah. So I don't know if you guys use this page a bunch or who goes and uses it, but you can see here, like some of our users have a lot of reputation. And like compared to others, like so you start with like, I don't know, 100 or so, and then we can see like, oh yeah, 939 versus 22,000, and it's almost like, what does this mean, you know? Especially because like some of these users, I don't think we've seen them for a while, and they're on top of our leaderboard. And so we're looking to kind of reset our reputation here and then really make it so it's meaningful. And so what we want to do, so we have a couple proposals of things to do, and the order of implementation is like a little bit up in the air right now on those proposals. But one of the proposals that we have is right now, the way that some of these guys have a huge reputation is if you give RSC in the app to like support some comment, that user will then get that RSC amount in reputation. And so we're not going to allow that anymore, to give that kind of reputation. Giving RSC from like now moving forward will just give you RSC and not give you extra reputation on the site. Some of the other things that are happening here too are some users, we see some behavior like they just sign up to the site, they might go sign up another 50 accounts and then go upvote one of their comments. So they'll have 50 upvotes on one of their comments here. That gives you plus 50 rep. We're changing this system so that we have like a dynamic kind of approach to it where only certain users are allowed to give out rep. And so this is a work in progress, this document, but I can post this to everybody once it's fully ready. And then we can kind of see what's happening with it. But basically, yeah, a user can only receive rep once they are upvoted by somebody who is eligible to give rep. Right now, we're going to set that as a minimal threshold. Probably like once you have 10 rep, which means somebody who is eligible to give rep, basically 10 upvotes your comment, then you gain 1 rep. So after 10 of those kind of instances, then you're eligible to now give rep to other people. And so this will be a dynamic thing where like who's eligible to give out rep will constantly change as we understand like who the users are on our site and like how difficult it is to get to a certain spot. But yeah, we're making that change. Another thing that we are looking at doing is whenever a user comes to the site and signs up, what we want to do is, and this is like kind of difficult, so we're pushing it off a little bit, but there's a notion of like Google Scholar, they have like an H index here. What we really want to do is, here's like another community member, Anton Lebed, here's his kind of profile. What we want to do is kind of map your like real life contributions to what's happening on ResearchHub. We're trying to figure out exactly how to do this because what we want to do is give people kind of like a head start in terms of rep who are like prominent scientists, but we don't want to give them so much of a head start that you can't ever reach them on like the site. And eventually we are thinking of rep as like a way to kind of gatekeep things, and like maybe even like our modern editor program in the future, maybe like, hey, if you're in the top like X% of rep in a specific hub, then you automatically become an editor. And so there's things like this where what we're doing with rep here, so it becomes more meaningful and can be something like that is used across the site to give privileges or take privileges away or give extra benefits to people. One of the things right now, I don't know if people know, but if you're in the top 2% of rep, your upvote gives out actually a lot more RSC than other people's. So currently, if you're not in the top 2% of rep, like you're, let's say you have 4 rep, then your upvote will only give out 1 RSC. But if you are in the top 2% of rep, and last time I looked at it, like this number is something like 120, 130%, or sorry, 120 or 130, then your upvote will give roughly like 40 or 50 RSC out right now. So you just have more power on our site, basically. Cool. Any kind of questions so far?
No, but I think it's a really good idea. I think needing a certain amount of rep, especially something like 10 upvotes, will help stop a lot of these spammers that just make a bunch of accounts. Because a lot of their terrible comments are obviously not going to get upvotes from anything besides their own accounts.
Right. Right. Yeah, that's one of the big things we wanted to stop too, because we see like a bunch of people coming to the site just saying like, oh, great comment, great thing. And like, we want to incentivize behavior that leads towards good comments and not just like a bunch of comments. So yeah. I see Jeff has his hand raised. So go to you, Jeff.
Yeah. Thanks, Pat. I think I was wondering if you guys. So, and I said you wanted to have the impact of like onboarding like an off-chain, kind of the off-chain credentials that somebody has, and onboarding them into the reputation. But you said you didn't want to have to make like a huge, like have it be almost one-to-one where someone couldn't catch up to that person.
Yeah.
Could you implement something almost like how quadratic voting is done, where you just do almost like a quadratic reputation?
Right.
So somebody who has like a lot of off-chain credentials still gets a benefit, but it's just the square root of that.
Yeah, that's definitely something we're thinking about. We're thinking about, so I was thinking about this in terms of tiers, right? Because like, let's say Anton, like his H index is kind of low. It's just 2, right? Versus somebody else, like, let me go find somebody who's got a lot, like, right? Like this Michael Jordan at UC Berkeley, his index is kind of high, like compared to 2. And so we just need to, we're thinking about like, hey, maybe we have buckets where it's like top, middle, or like 3 buckets, 4 buckets, 5 buckets, and then people fall in the buckets, then they get a certain like boost to their initial joining on. We were thinking about pegging that also towards like a percentage, so it's dynamic as things come. So it's like the earlier you join, or I mean, we still need to figure it out basically, because like this is giving out. We want to make sure that rep is meaningful on the site, and we don't want to just give out, like. If we give out 188 to this person right now, like it's not that meaningful because some people have 20K rep here and like it doesn't mean anything. So that kind of translation we still have to figure out.
Okay. And then another thing that I had was so that 2%, kind of the upper 2%. So say, assuming like we get a flood of new users into ResearchHub, so like that 2% becomes a like significantly less number of people as like total amount of people that's in ResearchHub. So does that like, I guess, scale, or does someone who was in the 2% and say 1,000 people came into ResearchHub, now someone who was on the border is no longer now that 2%?
Yeah, that's a thing that we're trying to, we're like monitoring it all the time because if you're right, if 1 million people just join, that 2% becomes really like meaningless. That 2% is something that we tweak. So like maybe it becomes 5%, maybe it becomes lower, 1%, maybe it becomes 0.5%. And we just need to see, like, because right now, like in our state, it's like things are not stable. So yeah, if like a bunch of people just join up, then like things change drastically. We're holding that basically so we can change it in the future. And like we were thinking about some things of like, oh, only people who have like gained 1 or 2 rep should count in there. So it's not like you can just create a bunch of orphaned accounts and then like they have 0 rep and then like it changes that number too much. So yeah, it is something we're aware of, and it was something that we know could be a problem if what you said happens. A bunch of people joining in. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And then I see Jennifer has her hand up, but I had one last thing I wanted to ask was kind of the idea of making it interoperable between like different platforms, or is this going to be a reputation system that's kind of solo in ResearchHub? And like if you guys would have the idea of maybe once it's established, maybe open accessing that to like other people, and so that way everyone's on the same reputation standard, and then that can be used interoperably between protocols.
Yeah, we're definitely open to that. Some of the things that we have to think about for that are like, if people are doing stuff outside of our site, you know, and then like we want our kind of reputation to be synced across a bunch of different places, we need to like, it basically can't be something where like, oh, I'm on, let's say, what is it, like eLife, and I'm gaining rep from ResearchHub. Like we're using the ResearchHub rep across like with eLife, then users from eLife are gaining rep, but it's not being reflected back to ResearchHub. Then it's like things are out of sync, you know, it becomes weird. So this is definitely something we want to do, but we have to think through how to get it in a good place. And like, I think it would just be like, hey, once we find our first partner who would want to use this kind of reputation, then we'll go from there. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you.
Cool. So Jennifer, yeah, your hand raised.
Yeah. So I was wondering, I think that this idea is good that you guys are kind of limiting it to, or like kind of weighting the upvotes based on reputation. So I'm wondering though, if that wasn't obvious at all on the platform at all. So is there any plans to kind of make that algorithm a bit more transparent, like kind of identifying these top 2% of users, and then kind of making it clear that that's why this upvote is higher in the feedback, I guess, in that RSC tab, you know, just so that people are aware of how does this work, because the more you understand how it works, the more you know what the incentives are and how to behave.
Yeah. We definitely want to make it more transparent. There's like a lot of stuff in the queue engineering wise, and right now we have a team of like 4 engineers, and so we're like working through a bunch of stuff. I think, I don't know when that'll fall in, but that is a good thing to mention. Even in like your profile, like we should probably show in your RSC tab, like, hey, why did you get this versus 1? You know, like it was upvoted by somebody who has enhanced rewards. So yeah, that is a good point. I will definitely take that into account, and
maybe like have some, like these top 2% of users would get like a little badge, and so when you get an upvote for them, you see that their name so and so upvoted you, and you can see they have that badge, and it's like, oh, well, that's why I got that higher upvote. Or
yep. This is one thing that I remember, like just upvote transparency, something that you guys have been trying to get for a while. We have designs for that, but we're not sure exactly when in the timeline it's going to be implemented. Yeah, it could be like in the next month or so. But once we get into that, for sure, like we'll definitely add a bunch more of these features, so it's like easier to understand, like, hey, why did this happen, and like who upvoted me. Yeah.
One piece of this too that's important is we shipped this like updated reward algorithm maybe like 2 weeks ago, and so it's still very much like the experimental phase. Like we eventually want to scale it up to where we're giving out 5% per year through this algorithm. I think right now we're targeting like 0.5% per year.
Yeah, it's 0.5%.
Yeah, just to see what happens. And so to a certain extent, having things blinded gives us a little bit more of like an authentic like representation of what will happen when we start to scale things up. So we're kind of learning at the moment. And once we have like a better grip of like how the rewards work, like is it easily gameable? Like, are we going to end up like giving out a bunch of RSC to people who don't deserve it? Well, once we have all those kind of like wrinkles ironed out, then we'll like publish like maybe like a video or something like that that helps to like explain it a little bit better. But this is still very, very early stage. So we're trying to like experiment and see what happens first.
I do think it is a good point though, because if you don't know that this is happening, then like you're not going to be incentivized to want to make good content for people to upvote. So there is that balance here that we need to get. Yeah. Okay, cool. Nick has got his hand up.
So first off, I want to say I'm glad to hear the rep and RSC rewards aren't linked like perfectly together. So that's good to hear. I had one question. So you had mentioned that there was the upper 2%, their upvotes mean more than others.
Yep.
Is that and then if I'm the lowest user, my upvotes are worth less. Is there a spectrum between those, or
There is not.
2% is the 50, and then below that it's all flat?
Yes, it's not exactly 50. So what we're doing here, I don't know if it was ever fully explained. We put it into a blog post, but what we're doing here is basically we're targeting a specific amount of RSC to give out per year through like this upvoting scheme, and so we set it at 0.5% of the total, the total amount of RSC out there. So it's like 0.5 of a billion. So I don't know. I think that's 5 million RSC.
50 million, maybe. No, 5 million, you're right.
5 million. I think it's 5 million. 50 million would be 5%. So yeah, basically we're targeting right now, it's set at 5 million RSC to give out every single year. And the way we measure that is like we look at how many upvotes we have per day, per week, per second, per year, per month. We do a kind of a calculation to estimate like, hey, what should it be? And basically like we're saying, hey, the next upvote, what should that give out based on what's been happening on the platform recently? And then, yeah, only the top 2%. Right now we set it at like the top 2% of people can give that out. Otherwise, we'd see a bunch of spammers come in and then like they're just going to upvote a bunch of random stuff for themselves and then get this reward. So then like, yeah, it just becomes a weird thing. So
I see.
Yeah.
So then would the if let's say if I'm in the 2% and I upvote something, there's a different amount of RSC that might give out. But
yes,
if myself and then another user who also have a history of rep on the platform both upvote a comment, does the amount of rep that we give out equal?
right. Right now it is equal. I'm trying to play with this a little bit to figure out how we can give out, to see if like we want to give out more rep when a more reputable user upvotes you as well. Like maybe there is a scheme here where we can do something where it's like the more rep you have, the more rep you can give. That's the case with RSC a little bit right now, but it's not the case with rep. But that'll be something that we have to kind of figure out along the way too. Because we don't want to give one person like way too much power, or like a couple people way too much power, and like they kind of gatekeep the whole community by being able to give out a lot of rep. So that's something we need to figure out.
Another important piece of this is rep is like hub agnostic. And so probably when we end up nailing down these reward structures, rep should be dependent on the hub that you're in.
Right.
So like you could have a high rep in biochemistry and a low rep in physics, and that influences how your upvote is weighed in each hub. So
Right.
yeah, these are all like an iterative process where we're going to take like steps towards a better system. But yeah, this is not the final way that we're going to think about rep, and it will definitely evolve like a decent amount over the next 6 months or so.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Cool.
I also shared a blog post in the messages here in the Google Meets that has a better description of how the reward structure is working in this like V2 RSC rewards.
Yeah. Does anybody have any other kind of questions about rep or where we're going with it?
So I have one question for the community. We mentioned that in theory, like we're gonna have like established scientists have like a head start when it comes to rep. How much effort should someone who comes in with no scientific background, should they need to put in to catch up to like a early career professor who does nothing on the website and just shows up on day one? Like what's, just so we can help to calibrate, like how much effort does a new person need to put in to catch up to the rep of an established scientist? Yeah, Jennifer?
Are you referring to someone who has zero scientific background, or someone who might not be in academic research but works in industry in some capacity and still kind of adjacent to science in that way, but not in academia.
I think someone who doesn't have like a STEM undergrad degree. So like someone who's like political science in college or like a high school student or something like that.
I would say the bar should be pretty high. Probably at least I don't know, 50 upvotes before they have some kind of established rep.
Kind of the way I was thinking about this, and maybe this is a little bit too aggressive, but like in terms of like years of activity on the platform. Like if you're like a daily active user who's contributing to a hub for a year, like is that enough to catch up to a PI, or should it be 2 years or 6 months? Nathan?
Sorry, I might have missed just the start where the incentives of how reputation is distributed among the top 2% and how it's given out it was explained. But would it not naturally work itself out if the established users on the site were finding someone who maybe doesn't have a traditional background in academia but are posting quality content? They would find themselves accumulating reputation through getting the respect of people who have reputation themselves anyway over the course of a year, right? And then I quite like the idea of keeping it subjective, because as Jennifer was pointing out, there's lots of different ways of getting credibility, even the stuff that isn't connected necessarily to Google Scholar.
Yeah, totally. That's kind of what we're thinking. And just like whether like we should make the rep like achievable within a year, or should it be like 6 months of like high quality contributions, just trying to like take everyone's temperature to see like how we should kind of like scale that process.
Yeah, sorry, just a very quick return on that. I guess what I was saying is that let's say even over the course of 1 month, a new user posts really quality content every day, and people with high reputation are consistently upvoting it. Perhaps they could catch up faster than a year. Meanwhile, someone who's posting maybe one quality post per month over the course of a year could do it. And maybe the time frame isn't quite as important as maybe the sheer volume of quality content that they put out.
Yeah, that makes sense. Does everybody else kind of agree with Nathan? Any different perspectives? Iona?
Yes, maybe he or she or they can do some peer review on their field. And also the purpose of the reputation maybe could be clarified, why that person needs some reputation. So yeah, maybe we can quantify in this aspect.
Yeah, totally. And just like to be clear, this will probably change again in the future a couple of times. So it's like we're going to iterate towards like something over time once we get more feedback and user interaction data. Malik?
Yeah, I more sort of had a question / proposal of tying this with peer review. I know last time we had this, question about, who can, or like if we should like open up peer review for like everybody, or and then if there is a chance, then where the peer review is done, we can keep it open for everybody, but then somebody with a high rep or something, if they do a peer review, then it somehow shows up, like their rep shows up in that bar or something. Just a thought.
Yeah, totally. We can do some UI tricks where like maybe we order the peer reviews by a user's rep or something like that. Satvik?
My perspective on this was, if a professor shows up on day one and is awarded high rep, right? Should they be sort of punished for not showing up any time after that? So that could be maybe a weekly decrease in their rep if they show a lot of inactivity. Could be sort of think of implementing something like that. So on one hand, we are trying to get normal users up to the rep that professors get. On the other hand, should we be looking at decreasing the rep of professors who aren't sort of contributing to research overall?
Yeah, it's an interesting point. We've talked a little bit about even with like claiming papers, where just to put like some time pressure, like maybe like every week, like 1% of the research coin earnings in the pots of gold decrease, just to like help to encourage people to sign up quicker. I think like just from like talking to a lot of people for a long time about this project, one of the biggest challenges we're going to have is bringing in like established academics. Like it's really, really hard to have success in academia. And so I think that we need to be respectful of that time and effort and not necessarily like turn them off through different ways. Like we want to welcome them. And I think like it's important to, show respect for like the success that they've had in their own careers, because it's definitely not easy to do so. And one way we can do that is through reputations. That way they show up on day one and are like adequately, respected for the work that they put in the past. Edwin?
That was a mistake. Never mind.
Okay, cool. Nick?
I was thinking if there's a new user who keeps posting exceptional content, it's the amount of upvotes they might get is in part coupled to the amount of traffic that paper gets, that comment is on too. So if that paper might not have a catch-all title that really makes people click on it, that might affect that. And I was wondering if it could be useful if there was some way where people of a certain rep could give out some sort of accolade to that post. Like I could, if it's decoupled now, I could support it with RSC and I'm effectively giving them, a financial means. But if there was some way where I could look at this post that's just outstanding and boost their standing on the platform because of that, separate from RSC.
Yeah, one thing we've talked about is like endorsing content. So not necessarily upvoting, but like giving your stamp of approval as a user. And like that endorsement could also be weighted by like the endorsing user's reputation. It's an interesting thing because we don't want to get too complicated early, but I kind of like the idea of endorsing like peer reviews and posts and papers saying like, hey, you put your, like for lack of a better word, like social, capital behind like this piece of content.
Okay, cool.
Iona?
Yeah, so Jeffrey posted an interesting proposal about governance. So maybe we can do something with that relating to the governance users. And like, as you said, to delegate somehow and to endorse some reputation.
Yeah, I think so. I think like it's really impossible for a team to come up with like the best possible reputation scheme kind of behind closed doors. So like one of the reasons that we're doing this is because you all will probably have better ideas than we do. So once we're ready for Pat to publish that, I can put it into a post on the ResearchHub hub, and then we can have kind of like an open discussion around like the actual structure of it in like a permanent like forum, so that way we can take into account everybody's feedback, sort of like what Kobe did with the peer review feature. Does that sound reasonable, Iona? Is that kind of what you're thinking?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, cool. Nathan?
Yeah, I really like the idea of what you were referring to earlier about if an expert shows up for a very short period of time, there's some way of giving their post credence, even though they haven't quite had a long time on the site. Because I'm just seeing for a use case for a lot of established professors is that maybe they'll only use this website once or twice when something that's very important to them, where they are the world expert on the topic, is posted, and that really there should be some facility to give their opinion on that topic. a lot of credence, because a lot of different papers will have one world expert and they won't probably be on the site. And so maybe that will be the time where they should be given the most reputation, and after that they can just be another user. So perhaps maybe editors could be used, and people with established rep and senior people on the site could be there as sort of gatekeepers to essentially give certain posts some real prominence if we understand that a world expert on a topic is weighing in on either their paper or a paper in their area.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think it's like the challenging thing is accomplishing that while still helping someone who's outside of academia like be able to participate in that conversation. So it's like tearing down the ivory tower while still like giving entrances to the ivory tower, I guess, is really what we want. But yeah, it's a tricky thing, and we're not going to get it right for like the first like 5 to 10 like iterations of rep. So yeah, if anybody has ideas on how to do it, like please share them, because we'll build it, because obviously rep is like pretty crucial part of the website to get right. I guess, does anybody have any final thoughts? Because we spent just about a half hour on this so far.
Oh, I have one thing. I think it's really important to earn or to link reputation to earning capacity on the site. I think specialization in the ResearchHub economy is going to be really useful. And maybe there'll be a bunch of things that we have to think about as a function of that. But I think if people with certain reputations, for example, got paid more for peer reviews, I think that would be a good thing for the site.
Yeah, I totally agree. We're actually talking about building a revenue model around peer review, like bounties for peer review. So maybe like if a bounty hits a certain level, like only users of a particular rep would be eligible to share a peer review on that. There's like a gigantic design space here. So like we have no idea what the right thing to do is. And realistically, like as the like dynamics change, as more users come in, as we reward things differently, like there's just going to be too many variables to predict. So we're always going to be changing things like every like 3 to 6 months. So yeah, I think that's actually the coolest part of ResearchHub, is that like our community can give feedback into how to change the reward structure in order to incentivize the best behaviors among the community. Yeah, because as I said before, it's literally impossible for like a group of people behind closed doors to do that. So yeah, the more feedback we have, the better we'll be. Cool. Should we move on, Jeff, you think?
Yep. Yeah, I think that's a good time, about halfway mark. So the next topic that we have here is going to be the SciCon hackathon. And so this is kind of this blend between more of like a conference where we're going to have users be able to upload different like functions on the ELN, with like content and blog posts that are like science related, and also give these kind of 3-minute lightning talks. And we'll have like a panel of judges and things like that will judge. And we have a few tracks that we're interested in kind of pursuing. And I think we can have Ricardo, I think he's on the call here, maybe discuss a little bit more about that so everyone can hear the details and kind of the timeline that we're thinking for it, and what still needs to be done.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. Sorry, something came up last minute, so I had to join only late. But yeah, so basically the idea, as Jeff said, is to kind of like structure the hackathon / online conference around 3 teams. We were thinking about having meta science as a broader topic, talking about the problem of research that we're facing nowadays. Having a more engineering focused topic that is going to be most probably brain machine interfaces and human machine interfaces. And we were thinking before to go for another technical, let's say engineering topic that was robotics and AI. But then Jeffrey brought to my attention that maybe we could have something more let's say embracing also the branch of medicine. So we were thinking something maybe related to BMIs that could be neuroscience. So I wanted to get your opinion on this. If it's better to, in your mind, if it's better to get something, like meta science is a broader topic, and then we're getting something related to medicine and something related to engineering, instead of just focusing on engineering topics for this hackathon and do another one at a later time. So you just wanted to get your opinion on this, and then we'll get into the details of the competition itself.
Did anybody else understand that question well?
I think I can try to like clarify a bit. So I think that it was there's 3 tracks. One track is like kind of a meta science track, and that's, I think a lot of people can generally input on that. And then the 2 remaining tracks, one of them is going to be kind of an engineering focused one, which is going to be more like a human machine interface or brain machine interface. So it's going to be a lot of kind of material science engineering. And then the 3rd one initially was going to be kind of like an AI robotics, but we were discussing maybe doing something that's more in the realm of the basic sciences, and like kind of related more to like kind of clinical or medical. And we were just going to create kind of like a broad neuroscience track for that. And so I think Ricardo was asking, are those kind of 3 broad splits? Like, does that make sense for everybody, or is there kind of a preference for something else?
I mean, on what basis could we make that decision other than just personal preference? Or
the idea would be to be able to embrace as much as we can the community, and not having something that is too specific so that only a few people can contribute. That's why we decided to take out the robotics and AI, because it's a really cool topic and it's very specific. So maybe
That's true.
have less people actually contributing.
Yeah, I think I can offer some opinion on this. I think that there's 2 approaches. One would be if we're sort of making this a kind of festival advertising research hub and kind of making a hackathon very research hub focused, in which case I think the meta science topics do really well there, because it doesn't matter what discipline you're in from, it doesn't matter what your skill set is. You really understand Research Hub and the message of Research Hub through those topics. And then, if that's the contributions to the hackathon that we're rewarding, then everyone's on the same sort of wavelength and everyone can understand everyone else's topics and can judge their ideas, etc. And it doesn't matter if you have a technical background, non-technical background, medical background, whatever. That being said, if we're just trying to, offer some interesting ideas, we're going to do this again in a few months' time, where we can do, a bit of meta science and a few other different specialist areas. That approach works as well. So I don't think there's a wrong answer to the topic, but if it's a very research hub focused thing and we want to get as broad a group of people there as possible, then maybe people coming from like Edwin's law perspective or something might not be as comfortable in these areas as others, in the areas of engineering, etc.
Yeah, but anybody with a law background who's doing anything Research Hub related at this point is pretty interested in technology and science generally. So, I mean, I would consider that.
That's a good point. I mean, if you pick the topics well enough, then everyone's interested in it. So,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
I personally think it might be better to choose just the one meta science topic and not spread ourselves too thin. And kind of focus on something that is encompassing, but having multiple tracks, I think that's going to be kind of a lot to take on for a first time event. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that is also a possibility. The idea would be to be, more embracing of different fields. But as you said, meta science kind of like is already explaining most of our mission and why we're doing this. So it might make sense to start with this. So this is basically why we wanted to get input from the community. Also, like the submission would be a kind of like a free format ELN submission. So sort of like a blog post. It's going to be, I don't want to say too rigorous, but people would be free to actually explore maybe fields that are not really into their main let's say everyday kind of like topic of research. So that could be even interesting for people actually outside of those fields. But yeah, that's definitely a good point, and we will be thinking about this. That's why we wanted to get started earlier, to kind of like get a little bit of feedback from the community on how we think this could be done the best way possible.
I think even if it's advertised as a meta science theme for the day, the hackathon event, that doesn't necessarily need to change that speakers could be taken from BMI areas and neuroscience areas. If those are where our connections are, we can get good speakers in those areas, and then just tell them to cover a meta science sort of bent on their topic, and there will be meta science bents on all these topics, and then they can also integrate some of the fun technical stuff in their speak talks or contributions, etc. But if it's a Research Hub event, obviously we're trying to facilitate, accelerate the pace of science in this area, and so they can also talk about it.
Yeah, that definitely works. Something else I wanted to get your feedback from is regarding the kind of like how you get the top submissions. We're thinking maybe we're gonna have a lot of submissions, and we're thinking about having a jury of, let's say, experts. So let's take, for example, meta science. We got a jury of experts in this field that kind of like can judge the ELN submissions, but they maybe don't have the time to go over, I don't know, like 100 submissions. So we're thinking having a first kind of like round that is reviewed by the community. So we also get we kind of like test the peer review system that we're building, and then you get like, I don't know, top 20%, top 10%, top 30% that goes into like the second round, and then you get the jury actually putting a vote to that and deciding the best submissions. So yeah, here as well, wanted to get your feedback. What do you think could be best? And we're thinking just doing having the jury go over like all the submission, but that could be quite a lot. So yeah, wanted to get your feedback on this.
Yeah, Jonathan?
I think you're muted. Okay. Anyone else?
Maybe Patrick can give some input about how the usual hackathons, I mean the crypto hackathons, went so far to not be like extra.
So I've actually never attended a crypto hackathon, so I don't know if I've got like the best perspective. Thomas went to one when we were in Amsterdam, so I can like try and grab his view on it. I know it's slightly different though, because like when you're building like a app or something like that, like it's kind of like you work with a group of people for like 48 hours and like actually build something functional, where this would be a little bit more like people presenting the research that they work on in their own like kind of like personal academic careers. So it's like I think like there are parallels that we can use for like using judges and like prizes and stuff like that, but the actual creation of the content is more of like a showcase, I think, than like bringing random people together to work on something new over the course of like a weekend or something like that. If I understand correctly, Ricardo, would you say that's fair?
Yeah, that is exactly. Yeah. Yeah, Jonathan.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes? Okay, great. So basically, this relates, maybe there could be a way in which we could also have people build stuff. Basically, we had just been talking about this reputation system, for example. Wouldn't it be a nice challenge to design that, to like come up with different designs, even in a technical sense? Maybe, get some computer scientists to even write some code So really have a hackathon element to it, which you actually have a challenge to come up with the distribution of reputation, or how should a user be rewarded, like compared to an academic, or some kind of particular challenge, like a specific challenge. Oops.
Like that.
Yeah, that's a great idea. It fits with the meta science topic too. I think that's a really good idea.
Yeah, I like that too. We were thinking about, doing something more, practical, but we're thinking maybe that, kind of like deserve its own event. But now if we're thinking about, removing the other tracks and just focusing on meta science, that would make sense to actually bring that back in. So yeah, thank you. That's a really good input. Malik?
Yeah, I was just wondering, like, do we have a survey of like how many people are like looking to like submit to the ELN? Like, do we have any brief number out there that we know that how much interest is out there? Or should we advertise this more and more so that we have at least, posts and speakers eventually?
The idea would be, as soon as we finalize the actual structure of the event, to kind of like get started with all the marketing and outreach activities to actually bring as many people in as possible to bring them on the platform, just use the ELN and give us feedback. Because basically what we want to do is do an event where everyone kind of like feels they could participate in and share their thoughts, and we could even open like a box for suggestions, so that way we're also getting help for from the community on how we could improve our products.
Maybe you can do that a peer review article on ResearchHub, Malik, about ELN and how the community can be involved more.
I think we'll definitely have to do some marketing for this, like even just to reach people who may not be aware of ResearchHub. And so I have like a little bit of experience of marketing events that we did a while ago, like AMAs and stuff like that. And I think we'll be able to set up some bounties to help like leverage our community. I even like this is silly, but I saw like some entrepreneur who like got their first like $500,000 worth of like sales just by doing like sidewalk chalk on university like campuses and stuff. And so I think like we can do like online marketing, and then we could also do some like kind of cool like guerrilla like person to person, hand to hand combat to get people into ResearchHub, all compensated with bounties. Because yeah, we have a lot of people who are passionate, and I think if you leverage 60 editors, it's not like that much time for an individual to like send an email to like a meta science professor at their school or something like that. So yeah, I feel confident that we'll be able to get like a pretty significant number of people using the LN to actually like submit content for this hackathon.
Sounds good. Yeah, thanks.
Hey, Ricardo, maybe you can kind of give an update on like what the timeline is, when we're expecting to have something like this happen, like where we're at in the planning now, and what we still need to do.
Yeah, so the idea would be to have the event in the last week of July, actually the one before the last week of July. So we're looking at basically like 2 months time from now. And where we are now is basically in the definition of the event itself. We kind of like wanted to get the competition structure done in a way that is doesn't have to be changed again and down the processes that wouldn't be ideal. Also, we wanted to separate a different kind of like submission that we would have got from the community. So the ELN submission, the kind of like the 3-minute video to kind of like get to explain your research. And the next step will be to basically organize, like coordinate in the working groups on Discord. So if you want to contribute, just remember to, come on Discord and, drop a message that you would be interested in getting involved. What we're looking for mainly now is people that would like to contribute in marketing and outreach activities. because we'll have Daniela from our community developing the website, kind of like putting up the website dedicated to this hackathon, and would need someone that is skilled in graphic design to kind of like do the graphics and stuff, and marketing and
someone who might be able to for ResearchCoin, by the way.
Okay, yeah, I saw that. Sorry, didn't get back to you, but
No,
it's gonna happen. But yeah, so the more people we get is involved on this side, the better, because the rest, it's really just coordination, kind of like planning of stuff. So I think, yeah, if you really want to contribute, I think the best idea would be to, again, drop a message in Discord. Even if you have an idea of any speaker that you would like to get involved, we're also looking for speakers to actually talk about meta science, for example. And yeah, that's basically it. The timeline would be, I would like to get all the planning done by the end of May, so that we can, and by planning I also mean recruiting all the people to actually put in the working groups and like get starting to work, to really make use of the May of June to develop the website, carry out all the activities on marketing and outreach, and we can get everything really finalized by beginning of July, and we kind of get that those 2 weeks to make perfection what is needed to make better before the event. So yeah, that's it. And also, if you're thinking about any other kind of like DeSci project that you would like to see on the platform, maybe like partnering for some activities or like doing something within the broader event that we want to make, please also drop your suggestion. We have a thread that Jeff created in the general chat channel on Discord. It's a SciCon thread, so you can just drop a message there and it will be definitely taken note. Oh, and also we will finalize we'll make sure to finalize the bounties list, so that everyone in the working group will actually be rewarded for what they do. So that is also among the planning tasks that we are kind of like structuring right now. So we'll get that out in the work pretty soon, I hope.
Yeah, another thing, kind of cool, fun thing we were considering and get some of the community input on is, so one of the things that I've seen before in other conferences and symposiums is to have kind of this like kind of cover art submission. So in a lot of neuroscience conferences, you have these like really beautiful immunofluorescent stainings. And so people will submit different images that they have and it gets voted on, and then there's a winner. And one thing we were thinking of implementing was, we have the same structure. We have the community vote, and the community can vote on whatever image would be the winner. And what we could do, which I think would be really cool, is we can actually mint an NFT of the winning science art. And we can mint, say, 10 or 20 or 100 or however much we deem. And we could either use it as kind of like a commemorative NFT, and we can hand that out to a bunch of the people that attended the conference, just to say, hey, I was here at ResearchHub's first annual kind of science conference, Hackathon. Or we can also just mint them, and then we can put them for like a, I don't know, 0.1 or 0.05 ETH or something like that. And then we can have those proceeds go towards, I don't know, helping fund different like users for like micro grants or something like that. So yeah, I guess which of those two options you want to just be a commemorative NFT, or like should we have a small fee so people can buy it, and then those proceeds can go towards helping a lot of the members of the platform?
I kind of like a combo. Like you could win it for winning the hackathon, but then also like if you wanted to buy it, you can buy it too.
Yeah, Nathan?
Yeah, no, I was just going to show my support for that idea. I love that idea. And just in general, I think having prizes associated with the event, especially if we can partner it with an organization that students can use on their CV as, okay, I attended this event, partnered with this organization, and I won this prize. That's a great way of attracting students, because they're looking for those kinds of things to boost their CV and things like that. And that's the sort of thing that this research crowd really loves. So.
Yeah, no, I think that would be perfect. And like, I don't know if we're allowed to do this, but like the winner of the art, if we do mint it into an NFT, I wonder like, you know, I don't know how like legal, like I guess like if this falls under a weird legal jurisdiction, but like have kind of royalties go back to that person. I think that would be like really awesome just to say, hey, yeah, I won this thing and I'm getting like some kind of benefits in perpetuity for like my contribution for winning. I think that would be really cool. Satvik?
Yeah, I think it would be better if my point comes after this NFT discussion is over. That's why I put down my hand.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think does anyone else have anything on the topic, or maybe we can move over. Okay. Yeah, Satvik, I think you can jump in.
Yeah, so I just wanted to figure out what Ricardo and you have in mind as for the exact sort of purpose of this event. So is it for marketing research hub or is it for something else? Right. And who exactly are we trying to target? So is it early career academics or is it people who are well established in their fields? Like, who are we trying to target through this? Those are the two questions I have.
Well, I guess the main target for this event will be just most probably like PhD students that would like to get involved. So we got two type of targets. Like for the speakers, maybe getting someone that is a little bit more experienced in the field that can share their knowledge. But as for the submission, the idea would be to get people from let's say PhD students and let's say postdocs that could be interested in trying out our platform. And even actually, if we keep the topic kind of like general, like let's say kind of like embracing as it is, meta science, actually also getting people from, the broader DeSci movement that would just like to, get on the platform and try it out and give us the feedback. So that is, that would be the main target for the, people that would like to see at the event. Does that answer the question?
Yeah. Also,
Maybe we
for the
can make
purpose
a
of the event.
post to advertise what you said, Ricardo, about the target audience, because it's kind of confusing, like how to get people involved. I mean, it's awesome what you're saying, but to like classify somehow, to advertise either on Twitter or a post or I don't know, something.
We're okay, so we're thinking about having like a coordinated kind of like outreach activity once we actually define everything, and then we can actually, yeah, as we said, advertise it. That's a great idea, and we're thinking about doing that as soon as we get the whole structure kind of defined. But what I can do is at least for the community, kind of lay it out a little bit better, put up a post on Discord and kind of like pin it so that exactly like what we're looking at in terms of the the target audience and speakers, so you can start looking by yourself if there's any person that you think could be involved in this event.
Awesome.
Okay. Yeah, Nathan?
Yeah, I was going to say, I certainly think this event would be interesting to, established researchers if they were to come across it, depending on the quality of speakers. And then also if there's a certain type of, professor that really likes the idea that, oh, if all the PhD students are involved and it's this new cryptocurrency thing, like I'll get involved in that as well. I don't see why we necessarily need to limit it to one or the other. I think in general, we're going to get the DeSci crowd one way or just with a few Twitter posts, just because they're the enthusiastic, motivated people. And then I guess the next challenge will be reaching out to PhD students who might not quite be in DeSci yet, but have experienced the meta science problems and would be quite easy to convince if we could actually reach them. Then I think, we may well get a very broad base of people attending after that.
Okay, well, we're at the end of the hour. So if anybody has any last minute things that they want to mention, please go ahead and do so. Otherwise, I think we'll probably call it for the meeting. So yeah, stay tuned on Discord. We'll have probably a lot more posts about the conference/hackathon. And the more people we get involved, the better, because we definitely will need all hands on deck over the next couple months to make this thing a success. So yeah, if nobody has anything else to add, we'll conclude the meeting. So yeah, have a good one, everybody.
Thanks,
Bye.
everybody. See ya.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, guys. Good to see you.